This week we're going to jump straight into making our character walk. Several weeks back we talked about the 12 principles of animation from the Illusion of Life. This week's discussion is going to go much deeper into this straight ahead action and pose to pose part of the 12 principles. So let's do a quick recap of what those are again. Now, remember, straight ahead animation is we create frames in consecutive order. And this is often used in something like stop motion, right? And the way this works is the animator creates frame 1, and then they create frame 2, and 3, and 4, 5, 6. So to get your character to raise their hand, they have to go through all 6 of these poses in order to get, or all 6 of these images in order to get that final animation. Yeah, again, this is primarily used in stop motion animation. This is not the most common way that most people animate, particularly in a program like Maya. The way that most people do animate in Maya is the pose-to-pose animation process. And the way this works is we create key poses, and those in traditional animation were done by the keyframe animator. So you may make frame 1 and frame 6. The character's arm is down, the character's arm is up. And then the in-betweens were done by assistants in traditional animation. Now, your assistant is Maya. And so what happens is when I create the keyframe with the arm down, the keyframe with the arm up, Maya generates these in-between keys. And it's important to remember that the stronger the poses are, the stronger these in-betweens will be. So you can see this with any action in an animation. Our character's going from his head down to his head up. He looks up. Right? These were possibly the 2 main keyframes. And you would draw these 2 first and then fill in the rest of the frames in between. Again, this allows us to plan out how the action is going to happen. Right? We don't have to figure out every frame in consecutive order. We can figure out the major beats of the animation, define those, and then allow some time in between to sort of fill in the gaps. And you'll see that in traditional animation, this was how it was done a lot. These gestures that Baloo is going to make, the keyframe animator had to nail down those poses, and then the frames that happened in between were kind of just transitional. Well, this week we're going to be working on a walk cycle. And so a walk cycle, or a walk animation, already has predefined poses for you. And that's because to be able to walk, humans need to hit very specific poses. Without these 4 poses that we're going to talk about here, humans just locomotion wouldn't be possible. So the 4 poses in a walk cycle are contact, down, passing, and up. You can see in the contact pose, the reason we call that the contact pose is because that's the first point at which your front foot contacts the ground. It's also one of the last few points or last few frames where your back foot is still contacting the ground as well. This isn't the highest point of the animation. This is kind of in the middle in terms of the character's up and down location. And it's important to notice that if your character has arms and legs, the character's right leg is forward, but his right arm is back. So your body counters, your arms and legs counter. It's not that your right arm and leg are doing the same thing. They're doing the opposite thing. Now your down pose is where you absorb the weight from the fact that you're kind of coming down on that front foot. If you look at that contact pose, it's kind of like your character's falling forward and getting ready to catch himself with that front foot. And so your down pose is your character absorbing that weight from that step, and you'll see with the back foot, he's pushing off to propel himself forward. The passing pose is called the passing pose because that's where all of the limbs pass each other. The character, both the arms and the legs are, the rear leg is passing forward, and both of the arms are passing by the side. The character is also starting to push themselves up. Now, if we look at this from the front view, you would see that the character has most likely shifted his weight over that supporting leg in the passing pose. And I'll show you that here in just a second. Now, the up pose is the highest pose in this entire walk cycle. And that's where the character kind of pushes themselves up just a little bit as they're sort of going past that passing pose. And if you notice in the up pose, it feels like he's falling forward. A lot of people will call a walk cycle a perpetual fall forward. And he would continue to fall if he didn't throw his leg out to catch himself on that contact pose. So again, we're back to the contact. But recognize that this is a different contact, right? This is the contact where our character's left foot is forward. So again, these four poses are important for any walk cycle, and we see them no matter what the character looks like. Contact, down, passing, and up. Right? But in order to make a full walk, we have to do two sets of these contact, down, passing, and up. We have to do one where the right foot is on the ground and one where the left foot is on the ground. And it really doesn't make that much difference which one is first, but we have to have both. Now, sometimes people call them different things. In this example, it was contact, recoil, passing, and high point. But you see that the contact pose at the end of this animation is the same exact pose as it is at the beginning. And if that's the case, then you get a full cycle of animation. We can repeat all of these poses over and over and over again, and the character can just walk forever. And that's why it's called a walk cycle, is because the animation can cycle. Now, let's look at this, at these poses in some video reference. So this is from Endless Reference. It's a YouTube site, and you can find all sorts of video reference. Now, notice the in this reference, the character is walking forward, but the camera is moving forward at the same rate. The camera is moving forward with him. And we should be able to see most of these animations if we pause it at the right time, or most of these poses. So we got our contact pose. Let's go back just a little bit. Our contact pose, right? We go forward a little bit more. We see our down pose, right? The passing pose. And then finally, the up pose. And again, what the character is trying to do here is sort of throw his foot out here to catch himself as soon as he can. And so then we're back to our contact pose. Now I want to go back to the passing pose just for a second so you can see that the character has shifted his weight over to his right side. And that's in order to make sure his weight is over the leg that is supporting him. If you watch the side view as we play forward, you'll see the character shifts his weight from side to side on each of these steps. Right. So that's very important. Now, in order to do an animation of a walk, there's really two different types of walks that we can do. Not necessarily in style, but in the method in which we create them. So the first one is we can have a forward walk animation. And so like this is just this guy walking forward. And we know that when he's walking, he is going to move forward. We would use this in like film animation or TV animation, where we, maybe are animating our character walking to the cabinets to get a snack, right? The other kind of animation that we can do in Maya is an in-place walk animation. And usually when somebody says a walk cycle, this is what they're talking about. And so even though this guy is walking on this treadmill, he's not really moving forward, right? He's walking in place. The reason you might need to do that, or the reason most people need to do that, is because there are times when you don't know where your character needs to walk, right? So, for example, a crowd simulation in an animated film, you may need a walk cycle because the software will simulate where the character goes. Does the character, walk in one direction and then turn down an alley? Or does the character walk in one direction and then go up a set of stairs? Or does he walk in one direction, turn around, and walk in the other direction? And to animate every one of those animations in a crowd scene of thousands of people would take years, right? So if we just make a cycle the character can be walking in place, but then the software can move the character around wherever it wants to, and it will appear as if the character is just walking in whatever direction is being moved, or he or she is being moved. This is most commonly used, though, in video game animation, because you as the player have control of where the character is going to go. So you use the arrow keys or WASD keys to move your character around, and the animators can't predict every location you might take that video game character. So they make the character walk in place, and then when you use your arrow keys, the entire character moves in that direction. Now, I'm going to show you, actually this version of an animation, the in-place walk animation, is the one that most people do as an animation test. But in this case, we're going to work on the forward walk animation. And that actually gives us a couple of extra challenges. But I think it also gives us a couple opportunities to learn some stuff. Some people will try to do the in-place walk animation and then move their character forward in Maya. And although you can do that, it's a little harder to make sure the feet don't slide around on the ground. So this guy, as he moves forward, that foot will stay stationary on the ground while this one moves forward. And if we're animating an in-place walk cycle and then just sliding it forward, sometimes it will look like this foot slides around on the ground and isn't firmly placed there. So in the next video, we're going to go ahead and start animating. I just wanted to talk a little bit about these processes and make sure you understand what we're getting ready to do.